What's up, guys? It's Josh from Soul Studios. I have the honor and privilege today of debuting and introducing the Heritage Audio Herchild 670N Next Gen. I'm sure right as this video is going live with the announcement of the product, Heritage has some great material on all the features and specs. So I won't spend too much time on that, but let's just look at the unit from left to right real quick so that when I'm using it, you will have an idea of what's going on. So you have your VU meters, of course. Then you've got your left and right bypass, where when it's to on, the compression is engaged, or you can bypass, which is always super useful and appreciated. Next, you have your input gain, followed by the AC threshold. So if your AC threshold is all the way to the left, that is going to be no compression at all, which can be cool, where you can just drive the input if you'd like for a little color. Next, you have your DC threshold. So all the way to the left is going to be limiting. And as you progress, you're going to get a little bit of a softer knee, which you can see displayed by the graphics there. What I found when it's all the way to the left, it's pretty cool to just be able to grab some peaks that are jumping out every now and then. And then all the way to the right is very cool to sort of always be compressing to some extent, but at a lower ratio. But it can give some really interesting results when you want to bring a lot of character to something like a vocal, but without it sounding like it's overly compressed. Next, we have our sidechain filter. So you have off, followed by 80 Hertz high pass, 160 Hertz high pass. Then we have a 1 and 3K bump, where on something like a piano or a vocal, if you'd like to emphasize those frequencies for the compressor to focus there, that can be really helpful for things that have a lot of mid-range information. And then 5K on something like maybe overheads that are a little bit too sizzly, or actually we'll probably try that here in a bit on a vocal. Maybe use the left channel as the main compressor, followed by the right channel just acting as a bit of a de-esser maybe. We'll see how that goes. Next, you have your time constants. So time constant 1, we have a 0.2 millisecond attack with a 0.3 second release. Time constant 2, 0.2 millisecond attack again with a 0.8 second release. Time constant 3, 0.4 millisecond attack with a 2-second release. Time constant 4, 0.4 millisecond attack with a 5-second release. And then time constants 5 and 6 are a little bit different, and I'm finding them very useful. Think of it as like having a really smart engineer to help ride the fader for you. So time constant 5 has a 0.4 millisecond attack, and then on the release, 2 seconds for individual peaks and 10 seconds for multiple peaks. Time constant 6, which has already stood out as a favorite on vocals for me, is a 0.2 millisecond attack, and it has a 0.3 second release for individual peaks, 10-second release for multiple peaks, and 25-second release for consistently high program level. So the release time adjusts to the material and how often and how long the peaks are, which is really cool. Okay, we're gonna jump right in. We have the song One Single Moment by Joey Barnes today, and we're gonna start with piano. One thing to note, all the way to the right of the unit, you have your left and right output, which I'm finding so useful. Now, you have 4 different link modes between the left and right channel. You can do individual, which would be your dual mono. You can do link, which would stereo link, lap vert, which we'll talk more about here in a second, and lap vert link. Now, lap vert is, think of it as mid-side, and this came about in the days of cutting vinyl. Now, the easiest way to think of this is the left side is going to be focusing more on what's in the middle, and the right side is going to be focusing on the sides. Now, some people get that backwards, because if you're thinking lateral, you would think left to right and the sides, and you would think vertical would be your center. But it's actually the opposite of that. And the reason being is it was referring to the motion of the cutting head when cutting vinyl, that when it was a mono signal, it was just side to side or lateral, and when it was stereo, it was vertical. So anyway, just so you know, I'm going to experiment with the lap vert right here off the bat with the piano track and see what it would sound like if we maybe widened the piano a bit. I think it's going to be a great song to experiment with the 670N on. Here we go. So I've only clicked the output of the sides to boost it 2 little clicks on the knob there. And let's listen against the dry signal and see what kind of width we're getting here. I mean, how cool is that? And a little goes a long way here. I'd actually probably click it back to just uh, one little click boost. And I don't really want to compress a lot here. I like the time constant 4. Let's experiment with, at least on the sides, maybe having it focus a little bit more on the 1 to 3K range, just for when some of those high notes may pop out. So as you can see, when I was emphasizing either 1K or 3K, it really just focused on those, which is going to be great, particularly for piano. I've discussed in previous reviews, piano can be a difficult instrument to deal with because if you start to over compress it, it doesn't sound natural. But sometimes, depending on how it was played, you can have things jump out quite a bit. So I know Heritage set out with this to make a Fairchild style compressor that not only had the tone, but had a lot more functionality added for a modern workflow, and it's showing up already right out of the gate on piano. All right, next up, let's try it on strings. That's been a favorite place for me to use a Fairchild style compressor over the years. So first, a little bit of the dry signal. So I think I really want to squash these with the fastest, which is saying squash on this unit is funny because it always stays musical to my ears. It never sounds like, oh man, that's pumping way too much. So because these come in at the big finale of the song, again, I'm probably sound like a broken record here, but we're going to do lap vert. I kind of like them linked, and we're going to boost 2 clicks this time, just so that as the song grows there, it gets a bit wider. So let's commit that, and then we'll move along to bass, drums, and vocals and hear everything in context. Okay, so there's a big upright bass, very full sub low end that comes in on that same finale part of the song. So it's a virtual instrument, so it is a stereo track. Let's see how the Hairchild reacts to this. I like that, and I wanted to use this song because we did do quite a bit of virtual instruments, and a lot of what I get to mix more and more these days is virtual instruments, which makes stereo units so much more important because even on something like an upright bass that may normally be a mono track, pretty much everything you get now is stereo. So I love what that did. It took a little bit of that top end click that was making it sound a bit fake and not so natural, and sort of centered things and to me is making it a more believable sound. So let's commit that, and then we'll work on a parallel drum aux. So dry drums first. So I'm a bit torn. Pleasantly surprised by time constant 3 and 4. There's just this squish that reminds me of the era that we made this album with in mind, you know, the 1960s kind of era, which makes sense because the Fairchild was used quite a bit at Abbey Road. But I think I'm going to go with time constant 6 just for a little bit more energy since it is a parallel track, and the 80 hertz high pass. So let's hear that blended in with the clean drum bus now. So it's awesome to have. You can just adjust the taste, but I'm really happy with that. So let's commit, and then we're going to finish up with the lead vocal. Okay, this vocal starts out very soft, very subtle in the beginning, and then explodes into the ending chorus. So we have a good dynamic range here to test out the Hairchild's capabilities on. So first, a bit of the dry vocal.
I walked right out your door. I packed all my things, won't be back anymore.
All right, I'm going to start with the left side of the Hairchild and sort of dial in the main compression that I want. Then we'll experiment with adding the right channel after that to either have, like I like to do often, use two compressors on the vocal, or maybe even see if emphasizing one of the higher frequencies there could give us a little bit more control and something beyond the functionality of most compressors.
I walked right out your door. I packed all my things, won't be back anymore. I left you lying in bed. Goodbye under your breath was the last thing you said. In here, there's something that I have to find. Out there, I'll drop you a line. It's still the only thing that I want on my mind. I walked right out your door. I packed all my things, won't be back anymore. I left you lying in bed. Goodbye under your breath was the last thing you said. In here, there's something that I have to find. Out there, I'll drop you a line. It's still the only thing that I want on my mind.
So when the 670N arrived, I was not in the market for a vocal compressor. I've been very happy with what I've been doing for a long time between the 176, the RS-124, the Stam ADG, the Bluey. Lots of options. I always have something that works for whatever kind of vocal I get. And I do get a wide range of female, male vocals, all different styles. Something about, I'm assuming, the transformers and of course the tubes does something to the mid-range on the 670N that is just beautiful on a vocal. And then like for this one where I want to be a bit cleaner, I don't want to be as heavy-handed as maybe Time Constant 1 or 2 does. Time Constant 6 just rides the vocal in such a beautiful way, and you'll see the vocal get more dynamic as we go. But this has established itself right at the top with anything else I have available to me for vocals. I do want to be clear about that and put that out there, because I know a lot of people ask me, based on the other reviews I've done, you know, would you go with this compressor or this one? So just keep in mind, HERCHILD 670N, I put it right at the top of the class along with anything else. All right, let's keep going.
I walked right out your door. I packed all my things, won't be back anymore. I left you lying in bed. Goodbye under your breath was the last thing you said. In here, there's something that I have to find. Out there, I'll drop you a line. It's still the only thing that I want on my mind. I've climbed to the top of the world. I've witnessed the tides change from shore to shore. I'm seeing through the eyes of the old. I felt all your cries for the love that I've sold out there. I've watched as the time passed me by, and in here I'm searching for answers. You're still the only thing that I have on my mind. On my mind. And I swear, if you should call, I'll be there. And I swear, through all that we've been through, nothing compares to one single moment we shared. One single moment we shared. One single moment. I walked right out your door. I packed all my things, won't be back anymore. I left you lying in bed. Goodbye under your breath was the last thing you said. In here, there's something that I have to find. Out there, I'll drop you a line. It's still the only thing that I want on my mind.
So this isn't an overly sibilant vocal, but setting it up to the 5K setting, you see where you can get it to just grab the consonants there. I'm gonna have it on the fastest setting, just grabbing, let's go to one of the louder parts of the song.
And in here, I'm searching for answers. You're still the only thing that I have on my mind.
I mean, it's just beautiful. You see on the louder parts, it goes as high as probably 15 dB of gain reduction on the channel 1, the left channel, and then just barely maybe a half dB to a dB of peaks being grabbed with the right channel. All right, guys, that is the review of the Heritage Audio 670N Next Gen. You guys know that I was hard on the P lane when it first came out, and that's how my whole relationship and discussion with Heritage Audio started. So think about it. If you're, after what we went through with the P lane, and seeing how they responded and listened to what you guys and what I was saying that we thought would make it better, how open and responsive to that they were. And then for them to have a new product come out and for them to send it to me, knowing that I can be pretty hard on equipment and I can be brutally honest in reviews, I think that just speaks volumes to the character of Peter and everybody at Heritage. And I think it speaks to their pursuit of trying to make truly special gear. And like with any review on the channel, I want everybody to be responsible financially with what you're doing in the music business. But I will say I'm really enjoying a stereo unit that has this much flexibility, that has such a beautiful tone, that I can use all across a mix. It's speeding up my workflow, and I was not looking for it, but I have found one of my new absolute favorite vocal compressors. So congratulations, Peter, everyone at Heritage Audio. I think you have made a truly special piece. I think you put a lot of thought and care into how you could take a classic and give us that beautiful tone, but yet add a lot of modern capabilities. And I know that's what you set out to do, and I think you've achieved it and made something that I'm so thrilled to have and that I will be using on every mix going forward. All right, guys, before you go, drop a like on the video, leave a comment so that it can help reach more people. And if you like this video and you have a fellow engineer that you think will be interested in the 670N, please share it on your favorite pro audio forum or social media platform. All right, I'll be back again soon. As always, I appreciate your time very much. Thank you, Heritage Audio. Thank you to everybody that watched. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.